Okay, welcome back. It's yeah, late March 1871. I've been procrastinating. I've loaded the game a couple of times, looked at the situation, looked at the offer, and just ummed and ahed. I mean, in the last video, I only depicted one turn and kind of insisted on doing everything other than clicking past turn again, and just kind of waffling on. Partly because I just kind of, I wasn't too sure. On the one hand, it's an enticing peace offer. On the other, and just as a recap, because it's been a little while, peace offer from Egypt then is to offer us Siwa and Salkim. Now they're very small. Siwa's, they're just a couple of desert regions that aren't even controlled by Egypt. And because this conflict is a transitional conflict, we're looking really to gain some border regions and position ourselves. It was tempting, and it's also tempting because what we're doing here has real ramifications. Keeping in mind that we militarily occupy two powers, one of which is Greece and is in full revolt. The other is Wallachia or Romania, and militarily occupying another one for a prolonged period of time, will come with some kind of serious ramifications. As it is, we're going to roll the dice. One of the reasons being is I want Suez. Not just because it's Suez, but because we've changed the rules to kind of like adjacent territory claims. Once we have Suez, we get a claim on Dumyat and Cairo, and basically the Delta region, which is enticing. Also, once we take Gazala, that then gives us with a bordering claim on Alex. Now, this is where it could get really interesting, because it doesn't really matter whether the British end up muscling in on the kind of Egyptian polity and, the kind of Khedive, and they end up politically controlling it. If we already militarily directly control the kind of political heartland and economic heartland of Egypt, which is to say Alexandria, Cairo, and the kind of Delta, if we can reimpose direct rule on the northern part of Egypt, because these are the big cities of Cairo and Alexandria, that would be really good. It would also give us contiguous territory to Libya, which is relatively meaningless until we get railroads, really. But nevertheless, yeah, I mean, Alexandria would be a really, really good site for another large naval base. It's a large city, so we can develop, a bit of an industrial base here. And if the remainder of Egypt ends up being kind of south near Aswan, and the British get some kind of informal control, we'll turn that into a client state, that's okay. That's a kind of, that would be something that I could live with, I think. So yeah, we're going to probably have two rolls of the dice. We're in 71 now. We want to try and secure a peace this year, really. So we will need to make there is a bit of pressure now, because I'm thinking, well, we need to secure a peace deal that gives us what we want, and then we're going to make a move again in a couple of years' time once this peace deal ends. Keeping in mind that we don't know what's going to happen. Austria could go to war with us again in the next year or two. There's lots of possibilities, and that would then occupy our forces in the north and this sort of thing. So I think we're going to pile the pressure on. I mean, at the moment the Egyptians are doing a reconnaissance into kind of Suez. We're going to set to an offensive posture, all-out attack, and we're going to get Ahmed Pasha of the Fifth Army to clear Suez. Then I think what we're going to do is subtract one corps. Even though there isn't a leader there, the forces north in Dumyat are relatively small. And we'll move the rest of the Fifth Army into Cairo, set to an assault posture. Most of the Egyptian army is there in Cairo by the looks of it, so there's going to be a fight there for sure. But I think our firepower advantage, our raw combat power, is now just so significant that I don't think there's going to be kind of any way that they can stop us. We're going to hold tight in Alexandria for the time being. We have got a 2-star Safed Pasha, Lieutenant General, joining Bayezid Pasha, which will open up some options. In terms of a bit of kind of force flexibility, we can subtract a corps that can maybe operate independently, maybe even take Gazala from the rear kind of thing, which would be quite interesting. Or just move down into the Delta and control some of the kind of victory locations. The areas that we really need to control are Cairo. It's Cairo or bust. So what we are going to do, actually, we're going to hold an offensive posture, but with the Fifth Army, we are going to don't usually do this, but we're going to subtract a couple of these supply trains and actually create a full-time depot in Suez, because we intend to hold Suez. The next depot back is in Judea, and the Sinai is not very well developed. It's a road, it's 38% developed, and it's a very sparsely populated kind of region, and pushing supplies for a good 100,000 men through the Sinai could be a little bit tricky. I mean, Suez is a port, so it doesn't matter too much. But we're going to build a depot there anyway, because we are going to turn Suez into a military base once we take it, and we're going to do just that. I think what we're also going to do is bring the rest of Bayezid Pasha's command from Salonika. Let's just make sure. Yeah, we've got the transport fleet in Salonika. So we've got various kind of service asset units, an additional 2 supply tenders, and all of the independent artillery for that command. I mean, that command still has artillery, some independent artillery, but also artillery integrated into the kind of army core. So that's okay. He has firepower, but we want to kind of bring all of our guns to bear. So let's bring the transport fleet off the coast, and we'll unload. Bingo. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. That's pretty much all we're going to do. We're going to hold this cavalry brigade for the time being. It's got a trickle of supplies in place in Siwa. Ahmed Pasha is not. He has got supply, but he's not activated. It's a shame because he's quite. Well, he's a bit of a kind of prospect for a future superstar. That said, it's fairly early in his career, you know. Yeah, I think in terms of our military moves, that's it. Everything else has kind of been done. Admin has been done. Got to quickly read through the reports. Okay, so military actions. It's the Nile Delta. We'll address Egypt. Egypt and Greece in a moment. We've actually already made a move, so we're sailing from, using Mehmed Pasha, we're sailing from Athens. We're going to look to clear the district around Athens. So one thing that might be worth doing here, actually, is... What if we had attached a cavalry brigade, or a cavalry division at 7 days? Let's do that. I'm guessing these are kind of brigade-sized forces. They're very small forces, so detaching a cavalry division, even if it is not led, should be sufficient to actually clear Epirus, and then from Epirus it's 12 days. Yeah, Epirus will then move into Thessaly or Larissa. Okay, that's a response to the Greek insurgency. The one thing we do need to look at is we're starting to accumulate quite a lot of private capital, and I'm thinking about additional structures. Let's check what we're importing really quickly. I think we're still importing chemicals. Yeah, 10 units of 20 units of chemicals, so we do still need to expand our kind of chemical production. So I'm thinking a chemical plant in Sinop. That might be our last access to chemicals, at least for the time being anyway. And one thing I've been thinking about doing, I think I mentioned this in the last video, is to begin the process of upgrading and extending the fortress of Bucharest. We want to turn Bucharest into, so we'll go with fortress extension for the time being, and then we'll look at a significant upgrade down the line. So Russians are penetrating deeper into kind of the Carpathians. So yeah, I think we'll just decline the peace offer. Now the worry is that this sprawls. You know, we're throwing our weight around a little bit here. This could get messy, but yeah, we'll see what happens. It might not. It might be okay. It might be fine. It might just be that the European powers are looking elsewhere just now. But yeah, this is gonna draw a bit of heat, I think. Maybe not, though. We'll see what happens. Okay, reports look good. In terms of Academy of Sciences, torpedoes should... Eternal 2 will have access to torpedoes. That doesn't give us anything, but that leads on to early torpedo boats, early destroyers, torpedo planes. I think probably not for some time in 1910, yeah. God, how strange would it be in this game when we have access to aircraft and submarines and stuff? We've had signalling, rifled guns. So we've got a long way to go, but these are going to be the qualitative kind of leaps, the big changes that we're looking at. One thing I might look also at doing is we're kind of limited in terms of what we can construct in Smyrna. We've got a shipbuilding plant in Salonika. Can I squeeze one in Sinop? Or are we out of space? But then I could put a shipbuilding plant the other side. In Izmit, really. 900 capital. 91 money. 54 manufactured goods. I think we'll do that because Izmit's, we've got access to more. And then once we take Alex, I think we'll put one in Alexandria as well. We can actually put one there now. Which is curious because we don't own Alexandria. We won't do it yet because we don't give the Egyptians access to kind of a shipbuilding plant. Okay, we'll do it. Good. Very good. Okay, going to try and punch through a bit of time in this video, because the last couple of videos have been a bit sort of, especially the last video, I was just kind of rabbiting on, and it was more because I just didn't really want to click past turn. But yeah, we're going to try and punch through a bit of time. So we're in late March, going to put you on pause past turn, and yeah, see you on the other side. Okay, welcome back. Then we've passed turn. It's early April. I've had a couple of minutes to kind of digest the turn, and let's have a look through the kind of... the reports, so just kind of generic reports of pirate activity, nothing that's kind of close by to anything that we want to intervene in really. We've got to kind of try and keep the kind of Red Sea, the Omani Sea and the kind of Horn of Africa clear of piracy, and these are the only areas where we're likely to see pirate activity. Let's really quickly check the Persian Gulf Fleet. It's in a reasonably good shape. That's fine, yeah, so that's docked in Qatar, reloading supplies and this kind of thing. So a bit of pirate activity, lots of kind of military actions, but very small, skirmishy type affairs. So, I mean, we're obviously looking to clear the district around Athens. That came off. Very small Greek forces. Looks like a kind of cavalry brigade, which is destroyed wholesale. That's good to see. Action in Suez. Now, we knew that the Egyptians were kind of reconnoitering Suez with, again, a cavalry brigade, and that force is destroyed. Completely, which again is good. Next action then is Greece in Janina. More limited, so this is the cavalry division that we subtracted from, I think it's from the 5th Army. Doesn't really matter, the 1st Army we subtracted. So that landed into a Greek force at Janina. It didn't completely destroy it. Again, it's very small, it's only 6,000 men. The cavalry division is 9,000. But it's a brigade of infantry, Greek irregulars, I guess. Well, actually, they look like regulars, but anyway, yeah, they are line infantry, but they are insurgents in the last analysis. Defeated, we sort of destroy half of their numbers, but we don't destroy any elements, which suggests that both of these regiments are about half strength. That force, I think, then falls back into Larissa, or Thessalia, and we see an additional engagement there with both the cavalry division, but also an infantry brigade, which sallied from Larissa. That inflicted over 3,000 casualties. And what we have now is the combined Egyptian force of 2 line irregulars and 2 line regulars. Again, we inflict casualties, but don't destroy any elements there. But a successful kind of counter-insurgency round in Greece. What's left is really the kind of rump of that insurgent force, and that is in Larissa. We're going to set that cavalry brigade to an offensive option. As it is, Mehmet Izzet is not activated. We're going to hold him in a defensive position. Over there. outside Athens for the time being. The First Army isn't activated either, so we're just going to hold tight. We are going to keep that cavalry division set to an offensive posture. In terms of Egypt, then, okay, we've got Safed Pasha. I unset the kind of strategic redeployment thing in Jerusalem, which is annoying me a bit because it wasn't happening. Anyway, we've landed him in Alexandria. That's good news. We're going to pair him up then, I guess, with the Imperial Guard Corps, since it's the best corps in that army, and it makes sense to have a special leader in command of that corps so that it can act independently. And we're going to do just that. We're going to subtract the Guard Corps. Now, that's actually not activated. That's fine. So we're going to keep that corps set to a defensive posture outside Alex. 4 days for the remainder of that force. That's fine. And we're going to look to secure the kind of the west bank of the Nile to the south then at Giza. So we're going to send Bezi Pasha. It's a 2-day march. He's activated. He's got 2 infantry corps, a cavalry division, some independent artillery, engineers, and 2 supply trains. That's good stuff. Happy with that. There is a depot actually in Alexandria anyway. It's the old Ottoman depot probably that was left there from decades ago. And we'll make good use of that. There are supplies at Alexandria. We've got good maritime access there. We've got the main fleet sitting off the coast, Alex. I'm going to quickly check the trade box. Doesn't look like there's any kind of... there's no evidence in the combat reports, for example, of any kind of attempts to kind of pester our maritime trade in the Mediterranean, which suggests that wherever Egyptian ships are, they're not conducting counter kind of, they're not looking to kind of interdict our merchant ships. That's fine. So yeah, we're conducting a move south towards Giza with the Fifth Army. We're going to again subtract 1 corps that doesn't have a commander. That corps, but its firepower is sufficient enough, and also the Egyptian forces, the other side of the water, Dumyat, don't have a commander either. We're going to keep him to an offensive posture in Suez. So if there's any attempt to move back into Suez, that corps will look to engage. The remainder of the Fifth Army is going to look to move into Cairo. We're going to conduct a 4-day march, an assault posture, all-out attack, and we're going to look to secure Cairo in the next fortnight. So by mid-April, we theoretically should have Giza. In fact, I'm going to set to an assault posture here also. We should theoretically have both Giza and Cairo. And hopefully, Safed Pasha will be activated for a move into Dumyat, which would be good. We'll see what happens though. So that's operations for Egypt. For the next fortnight, we've got forces held back. I wonder whether we can actually move, because once Ahmed Ayoub, even though he's not activated, my thinking is once he actually holds Gazala, he could be supplied from Alexandria. As opposed to, because at the moment he's being supplied from Benghazi. Okay, this doesn't look like it's very far, but it really is, and it not least because it's undeveloped. I mean, we have built roads here, so sort of 56% development. I'd imagine Gazala's low. Yeah, I mean Gazala's development is 23. So I'm wondering if we need to secure it quite quickly. Part of me thinks we could build a depot in Salum, No, we won't. 12 days. That's a long old march, isn't it? That's the Croat Volunteer Corps. We'll keep this cavalry brigade screening to the south. It is low on supplies, but it's a small enough force that these smaller units, they're kind of, the game is much more forgiving in terms of their supply situation. So this force is it's a very small force. It's 1,400 men. It's very far away, really. I mean, drawing supplies this far into the kind of desert is you wouldn't be able to do it with a large force, with a core size force. We're gonna hold tight. We've got 61% military control over the region. So we'll keep this brigade in place to do its business. Eritrea looks fine. I mean, that Eritrea and some Somaliland, These two areas are now protectorates. The next is, so the Italians are playing a lot of cards at Mogadishu. What I'm thinking of doing is, once the Egyptian business is over, is we will start bringing forces out of Eritrea. We'll leave a small security force at Massawa, and we're going to deploy that force along the Somali coastline, and we're going to re-engage the indigenous kind of sultanate, I guess, that controls this area. We at one point did do this, and we kind of cut a peace deal with them. I don't know what we did really. It was kind of pointless, but I think we just militarily control this region, build colonial forts, and use that as the basis for our kind of colonial moves, I think. Yeah, that's what we're going to have to do. What we might do is build a port and a depot at Berbera. That gives us good supply access in Bisaso. Yeah, I mean, any military forces that we have, for example, in Somaliland, or the north of Somalia, there's just no way of supplying them. We need a port and a depot. Thinking Berbera might be the natural kind of candidate. Look at this population, countryside population, 14 peasants, 1 serviles. I mean, the entire area is very sparsely populated in the last analysis. I mean, Berbera out of out of these 3 locations is the natural candidate, so to that end. That's good. Excuse me. At a certain point, I don't know why, military outposts like colonial forts, excuse me again, you just can't build them anywhere. There's a certain point where even if a territory kind of meets the criteria, I wonder if it's just like everything else, there's a limited number of certain things that you can have, reflecting certain kinds of, I suppose, limitations, you know, that are part balanced, but also part realistic. I mean, in reality, you know, nations can't just spam thousands of the same kind of building, or it's like so it reflects some natural limits, I suppose, in terms of what can be supported. But yeah, we can't, because a colonial fort in Berbera would be quite handy. I mean, we could just build a regular industrial fort. As we have in Massawa. I think we're going to increase the size of the harbour in Aden as well. I mean, the next sort of, once we've got these technologies down, we're going to be looking at a really, really big naval program. One of the ways we're going to fund that is we have got quite a lot of state revenue anyway, although it's slightly, at the moment, we're spending slightly more than we make. Obviously, most of this is, I mean, some of it's been spent on military upkeep, but also research and development, is we'll lift off some research and development for a period of time. So once we've got all these ironclads down, we're going to probably lift off 4 lines for a period of about 2 years. And we're going to use that to fund a big naval engineering program. We're going to upgrade, when we can, our shipbuilding plants to industrial kind of American, I think it's the American system, and then just begin the process of replacing all of our ships. Talking of which, we're kind of doing that with our merchant fleet a little bit. Okay. So we're sending steamers into the Med, and we're going to replace these kind of outdated merchant ships that we have. Right, that's all of the combat reports anyway. Let's quickly check the other reports. That's our moves made as well. Shipbuilding plant, chemical lab, that's good. Depot being constructed in Suez. Take a bit of time for that to be completed, of course. We've mastered industrialized silk production. I think that allows us... No, it doesn't. Ignore me. What does it allow us? Well, we've got silk plantations, but I think industrial silk production means that... I could just check, couldn't I? We could actually build some kind of silk factory, or where the silk is produced. Maybe it's in chemical now. What is it? Let's have a look. Let's have a look what's going on. It's going to be... It's not going to be naval. It's going to be production, isn't it? Industrial silk production. It's amazing to think that in 1850 there were only a handful of these technologies developed. You can see that we're well into the Industrial Revolution now. Industrial silk production. Adds a total of 1 new structure to force ball. Maybe it's just that the Ottomans don't have access to it, because yeah, I mean if we could... 80% AR step above 300. What is it then? Steel furnace, arms shop, mechanical shop, shipbuilding, ammunition. Yeah, it might just be that the Ottomans have a kind of limited... So you've got a dyer's quarry. I mean, my assumption is... I mean, we had silk plantation anyway, because we actually had a silk plantation. One of the few RGOs that we start off with, actually. One of the few in... I'm sure that in 1850 we already had this. Oh my god, we can upgrade this one. Absolute idiot. Didn't even look at this. We've upgraded all of our agricultural sites. 6. Oh, it might be that that's it. Okay, so industrial silk production allows us to upgrade this. Because I did check through every agricultural site. Okay, glad I checked. Yeah, I mean, that's... let's just keep an eye on what it costs us. Not a lot. Great. I thought it meant that there was a factory where we could just sort of, synthetically produce silk. Or some kind of... but obviously not, it just means that our silk plantations... So currently operating cost is capital. I assume that when it's upgraded it requires either mechanical parts or chemicals. Okay, we'll check that next turn. Production output is 6. And that is overall productivity 148%. So good railroad access. We've got a chemical site going in Konya. Okay, good. Good round economically. Exports are gradually picking up then. So exports are set to... 1700, so gradually climbing. National market sales is sitting around 1400, and imports ever so slightly up, 794. Most of our imports are things like coal, coal, chemicals, gold, and timber. Gold obviously for conversion. Exports, as you might imagine, fish, tobacco, dyes, cereals. A lot of dyes. Fruits, opium, wine, iron, textiles, cattle, coffee, luxury goods, and manufactured goods. Good stuff. Got to slightly reduce manufactured goods exports because we're sitting at 50, and with our construction, which requires manufactured goods, it has eaten into our kind of stockpile. So we've got to reduce it to 20, keep it about there for a period of time. That should allow us to kind of build, once we back up at 100 or more, we'll increase the amount available. Assets balance looks good. 1% inflation is healthy. Quickly check the regional census. No strike action. Worst attitude is... Well, Ankara is quite low, but it's indifferent. Why Ankara? I wonder why that is. Contentment of your population. That's still fairly high. So the lowest contentment is in Thracia, which is 22% Greek population. I bet it wasn't 22% in real life, by the way. I think there's an assumption, the makers of this game, that all of this area was just populated with Greeks and Bulgarians. It wasn't. I think I mentioned before, Selenik was, so Thracia is here. I bet this area was predominantly populated with Turks at this time. Obviously that changed with the birth of modern Greece and it acquiring northern Greece. Anyway. Yeah, good round economically. Happy with that. We've obviously refused... what is that? 22 Division Ligera, so there's some French frigates, I think, docked in Rhodes. We reject the proposal. Japan's engaging in massive investments. See, the other project that we could look at in the 1870s is a move against the Dutch, securing Sumatra. Could be interesting, huh? We made a play for Sumatra, didn't we? I think the 1850s, we were toying with the idea of kind of establishing ourselves in Sumatra, and it never came to pass. I mean, now it's a fully fledged Dutch colony. At that time, it was just an influenced territory. We've still got trade posts and missions there. But yeah, I mean, there's coffee, petroleum, dyes, timber. See, that's really good timber. And also tea. We're actually a tea exporter now. We've only got one tea manufacturing site, tea plantation, and that is in the eastern part of the country. And upgraded, it generates, I mean, yeah, it's 16 units of tea per fortnight. And we're exporting a good few units of tea, which is good to see. I mean, here we've got tea, timber, tobacco, oil, all good stuff. But if we could develop these timber sites, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 timber sites, that would probably allow us to produce enough timber for domestic consumption. I'm just toying with the idea. I mean, it probably won't come to pass, but with everything else that's going on, let's quickly check the Dutch. Is it Holland or the Netherlands? There we go. We're all the Prussians at the moment. What are their relations with great powers? Not great. Yeah, it's not like anyone's going to step in, but it would still hurt our relations with the great powers. Let's check Britain. Animosity factor 0. Britain believes the build-up of forces does not bode well for peace. Britain believes the large increase in our merchant fleet is undue to commercial competition. Yeah, I forgot that. If you suddenly build a lot of merchant ships, that's, you know, it's another pressure. Britain believes our strong military is a threat to peace in Europe. 80. Britain believes our imperialistic stance is a menace, so that's our interventionism. So all those things have coupled, but animosity set to 0. France, which is now a republic, animosity set to 41. Again, merchant fleet, strong military, imperialistic stance. I guess imperialistic stance is sort of like bad boy. It's our kind of throwing our weight around sort of thing. Okay, don't get distracted. Right, that's the remainder of the reports. That's actually everything kind of gone through. So, yeah, the moves have kind of been set. We could be looking at some big action in central Egypt around Cairo, Giza, which will sort of isolate Dimyat. In fact, Dimyat, that looks like where... Yeah, that looks like where the Egyptian fleet actually is. Let's set our own fleet to an offensive posture and intercept just in case the Egyptian fleet looks to the south from Dimyat. Okay, gonna put you on pause, gonna pass the turn. It's early April. We'll see you on the other side then in late April. Okay, welcome back. It's late April. We passed the turn. And let's have a look through the reports. So we've got insurgents loose in East Africa, Burmese raiders, nothing that should concern us. Now, a couple of big actions then, of course, as anticipated, a big action at Cairo. This is really where the lion's share of the Egyptian force was. There's about 64,000 men, split over 20 elements. This suggests that their army is comprised of lots of brigade and division-sized forces, which are quite poorly organised. 6 independent artillery regiments. It's a victory, a pretty convincing one. What's interesting, however, is that the Egyptians appear to have relatively modern artillery also, which is a surprise. But their force is not actually quite as antiquated as I thought it would be. But a lot of irregular forces, militia brigades, and this kind of thing. And obviously, because it's not organised into the core system, and doesn't have any specialised independent leadership, of course there'll be generic officers in place. This means that they're a huge disadvantage. We inflict 37,000 casualties. We do take 10,000 casualties though, so that's you know, it's not free by any stretch of the imagination. We take 6,400 prisoners, and it's in the bag, and we take Cairo into the bargain as intended. We get a national morale point for that. It's a pretty convincing victory over the Egyptians. Second engagement then was at Ghazala, as Bezi Pasha moves south from Alex, and that's a comfortable victory. It looks like the Egyptians there are really just set to pull back. I mean, they lose 2,000 men, they inflict 1,800, similar size, similar sort of casualties, but no kind of big committed engagement there, and Egyptian forces fall back. Very cool uniforms. That's it. So that's much of the Delta controlled. We've got Egyptian forces isolated in Dumyat. The Egyptian fleet is still there. There's an American observation fleet off the coast, which is interesting. I guess looking to pass through the canal. I think from here, let's break. Let's have it. So we've got independent. We've got the Guard Corps at Alexandria. Safed Pasha is now activated. We've landed the various support asset units and this sort of thing. What we're going to do is detach one of the supply trains and a couple of independent artillery. That's 14, that's good. We're going to send the rest of the military control. I mean, Giza is 100%. We're going to send the rest of this independent force 9 days. We can actually use railroads from Alexandria. There are railroads now, which is good. Yeah, Egypt actually has decent, relatively decent. I mean, it's the only independent African state that has any kind of railroads. So Cairo, Alexandria, Giza, as far south then as Fayoum. So yeah, we'll use the railroads to bring south the field hospital unit, the provosts, 2 independent artillery regiments, and the remaining supply wagon. And that's targeting Beyazid Pasha, which is good. Ahmed Ayub Pasha is activated. We're going to keep him in place for the time being, however. We will set to a defensive posture to clear anything that attempts to move in to Ghazala. We're at 60% military control, so we're going to keep him there for a little while longer. We'll keep the brigade screening to the south, and we've now got kind of a continuous link. This means that we should be able to supply him from Alexandria, which would be good. We're going to keep the fleet set on offensive posture and for interception. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a move on Dumyat, and once we take Dumyat, presumably the Egyptian fleet, if it doesn't fall into our hands, will be compelled to leave the port. What's interesting is this, you see this is set as being under strength, which suggests that there might be units which have not been upgraded yet, but they all appear to be upgraded. I wonder why that is. What if it's actually the Guard Corps, 1870 to 1890? No, I mean, it appears to be. Whether it's something else. 1850 to 1870, and maybe it's the HQ. (1840 to 1850) with the light cavalry. I don't know. There are some elements within this force that are not completely upgraded, so the unit appears to be under strength. It's not. In fact, it's not sustaining any casualties at all. But what that means is the older formations, the older fashion formations, are not factored into. Their elements are not factored into the overall strength, combat strength of this unit, which is interesting. It's okay. I mean, it's perfectly combat worthy. It's, for the most part, has been upgraded. Anyway, we're going to set to an offensive posture. We're going to move the Independent Corps under Safed Pasha to Dumyat. That's 11 days. That's, yeah, I mean, he's crossing the Nile, I suppose. I mean, Alexandria should generate some kind of generic garrison. If, for example, this force absurdly, is engaged and then falls back into Alexandria at a different point on the river, which is possible. The hope is that it falls back into Cairo or Suez. But operations going well. Egypt is gradually being kind of muscled in. They did offer us a peace deal once again. It's this time's Sulkim, but also Canberra. I don't know where that is. I was trying to figure out where Canberra was. It's presumably some kind of adjacent territory. My thinking was, oh, okay, it's here. Yeah, right. So it's sort of nothing there. Sparsely populated. Mostly slaves. That's interesting. Yeah, population's 1 units of peasants, 7 of slaves, meaning it must be some kind of slave trade area from the Horn of Africa. Okay, well, anyway, we're not interested in that, so no. And they passed that offer last turn, so that was before we seized Cairo, which means that probably opens up. We'll decline, so they actually get an answer. That lifts the war score fairly substantially. So war score now, well, against Greece is at 87. Doesn't actually say what it is against Egypt. Well, we could probably see actually from our foreign ministry. Let's have a look. Africa, Egypt. Treaties available. No treaties available. I mean, I know we don't have any diplomats, but that's curious. I wonder why that is. Oh, okay. Oh no, there's no treaties available precisely because they've already sent us something. Yeah, so you have to wait. You have to kind of wait until your answer is given. It's a sort of old school diplomacy system. So your answer is given, and then you can put forward your own proposal. Fine. Okay. That's it. That's Egypt. No developments this time then from Greece, which is curious. Let's have a look. What forces are here? Yeah, so this I'm just seeing also here. So even though it appears to be in Athens, this Greek insurgent force is still in Larissa. We're going to set the cavalry division to engage. We're also going to move the corps, which is activated under the Medizet north. to try and clear the area then between Athens and Larissa. So he's going to be providing assistance to the cavalry division, just in case it needs it. Good chance it won't, frankly, but anyway. 2 divisions of French frigates docked in Salonika. It's fine. What's the military control like? Okay, it's good. We have some old Vashi bazooks still. 20 years later, still kicking. Still rocking their kind of early modern uniforms. Very cool. And we're keeping the First Army in place under Mehmed Ali in the Peloponnese at Patras. We don't have any kind of diplomatic assets this turn yet until kind of June, July time. So we're really kind of at the moment dependent on peace offers from either the Romanians or the Greeks. And neither of them are offering us peace. Which makes me think that they're never going to accept a peace deal for Drobeta. On that basis, do we just forever militarily occupy Romania? I mean, can't really see why not. And Greece, you know. The only thing is we can't really economically develop the regions. Although we do control what economic development is already there, and we can upgrade it, which is interesting. Let's check the revolt risk. Yeah, it's high in Janina, really high. I'm thinking military police. Although I think we've actually reached our kind of limit. Gendarmerie, no we haven't. What have we got here? Heavy artillery. It's been upgraded. Look at that. That's so cool. Howitzers. We've got a reserve corps of Czech volunteers. There's no railroads to Janina either. Railroads go as far west in Greece as Salonika. It's a really undeveloped, kind of poor region. But we have got some military police in Istanbul. We could just release them, send them on railroads as far east, and then on foot. Because I think they have a kind of suppression characteristic. Suppression. Assault. Initiative. Discipline. I mean, one of the things they do is they improve the cohesion. 1870 to 1990, that's either a typo, or this is what military policemen look like even in 1989. Police 8. I'm guessing that's suppression, either, unless it's just a suppression and I'm being an idiot and can't see it. Been known to happen. Well, we'll find out, won't we? Yeah, we'll release the military police from Constantinople. Oh my god, look at this garrison, it's looking so beefy. Yeah, new guns. These are just immense looking. Anyway, don't get distracted. Military police, Constantinople. You know what the hell, we've got forces there. I think let's just wait. I mean, it's only going to take a fortnight to a month to train these military police in Izmit. Yeah, we'll just send them when we want to. I mean, Janina is This is not even a part of the former Greek state. This is just kind of an area that we control. So there's timber there. Overall productivity 32%. Probably because, yeah, local satisfaction 54. Locals don't like us. It's not a very productive region. We've only got Bashi bazooks there. Police 3. Yeah, I'm guessing this is like a suppression. (1880 to 1920) rebels. Which police 3. So these are the Bashi bazooks. In Rhodes, with decidedly European-esque kind of uniforms. Very cool. Okay. I'm just seeing what kind of units we've got scattered around. I'm having a bit of a kind of... What I might do is just send the military police, actually. It's not that far from Sarajevo. I might send the military police from Sarajevo. Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll send the new ones up to Sarajevo. So this has got a star. This, because of their experience, their suppression is slightly better as well. Okay, do your thing. 30 days. 18. 19. We're set to evade combat, and we use railroads where they exist. Okay, so, you know, it's going to take 18 days. Fine, okay. Good with that. State revenue's beginning to build up again, which is nice. Manufactured goods are starting to sort of accumulate also. Okay, good stuff. Oh, it wasn't Giza. That was Ghazala. That action where the Egyptians broke off. So there was actually no engagement at Giza. I think this is where the pyramids is, isn't it? Giza or something, the Valley of the Kings. Succeeded, yeah. So they retreated from Ghazala. They basically fell back everywhere. These old light artillery still have a half-decent combat value. I mean, they're going to be used probably very close range. And also they're experienced. The crews are very experienced. But I mean, that's 61 combat value compared to 70. Of the kind of regular guns, you know. Okay, good stuff. I was going to quickly check the... I'm not sure if I have already. So the Anatolian silks doubles production then to 12 units. Operational costs are now 8 capital, 1 coal, 2 manufactured goods, 1 chemicals, 1 unit of mechanical parts. So yeah, it's they're quite demanding actually. Whereas compared to, for example, opium is 3 manufactured goods, coal, and chemicals. Interesting. Coal. Ah, okay. That wasn't the case to begin with. I'm sure it's just chemicals and capitals. So these are all these upgraded agriculture. I guess that's the traction engines that are used on the farms once they're operational. Yeah, chemicals and coal. Okay. Interesting. And the actual upgrade outlay is also mechanical parts. Right, for the rest of the reports. Got control of Cairo. Torpedoes, we can start researching torpedo boats, good. I don't think we'll invest in that just yet. Now, we should soon have WIGWAG signaling. I think that gives us a signaling service asset unit. It's at 96, so it'll be in a month or so. But that gives us access, add 1 unit to the force pool. Bear in mind that if you already have a kind of a unit or a structure and it says add 1 unit or add 1 structure, what it really means is it's upgraded. So it might just mean that, for example, WIGWAG signaling, I think that it would be the service asset, a bit like military police or engineers, but it'll be signalers. That's what I think. But I might be wrong. It might be that one of the units that we already have is kind of upgraded, or it has some sort of new feature, you know, but it says 1 new unit, so I'm thinking it's going to be specialized. Description effect. Albert J. Meyer invented a signaling system adopted by the US Army in 1860. The system used a single flag as opposed to 2 flags required for semaphore for line of sight communications. At night, a lantern. Yeah, so I think it's signalers. Be a signaling unit. Okay, good stuff. Good round economically. Fairly sound. Domestic demand has slackened ever so slightly. Exports climbing ever so slightly. Pretty good. Let me just check. Okay, and I haven't set administration. Let's do that now. We'll keep manufacturing goods at 20 for the time being. Okay, good. Let's check our assets balance, keeping an eye on chemicals. So yeah, demand for chemicals is climbing. We just can't produce enough to meet demand. It's crazy. Let's really quickly check. Stockpile of gold is sitting at 47 units. That's all set for conversion. Gems 26. That's really nice. We're hoovering up gold from the world market then. So where are we importing our chemicals from? Harana. So we're short 3 units. Let's import 5 from somewhere. Let's go to Argentina. Let's check our assets balance. Let's see where else we are importing from. 8 units from South Brazil. North Andes, yeah, so we're mostly importing from Latin America. That's good. Want to kind of keep money out of the hands of the greedy European capitalists that are our competitors. We don't really want to be funding the development of Europe. Alright, good stuff. Silk production is shooting up. Once they get to about 30 units, we'll export anything above 30, I think. What's the value of silk? Oh, price 8. Yeah, okay. Ammunition 3. Right, we're going to be a capital. We're actually going to be an ammunition factory. And the question is where? So we can bag that up into a nice kind of industrial city, fairly modest at the moment. We'll put an ammunition shop, I think, in... Let's quickly check, actually, what they... Productivity's at 132%. That's okay. It's got railroad access. We don't want to upgrade these wool farms for the time being. That's good. Good stuff. Right, that brings our manufactured goods down to 59. Let's choke off, put it to 10 units export for some time. That will sort of suppress the amount of kind of revenue we generate for exports, because obviously manufactured goods is one of the most lucrative exports. But we need to actually build up a stockpile that we can use, because obviously it's a very broad kind of broad definition, and the kind of manufactured goods we need to stockpile are those sorts of manufactured goods that are useful for construction. That's interesting. Okay, that's reports read. Let's quickly check. We've said no to Egypt. Let's check what's happening in France. No signs of impending revolution or anything like that. Indications of a possible rebellion in North Africa. They militarily control Tunis. Let's see what their colonial penetration here is. France 35, PM starting at 42. Right. You know, the lead in the south of the country. That's good. We're keeping this. So this is a kind of an Italian influenced territory, but this is not controlled by anyone, even though the French are militarily controlling Tunis. We've got a trade post and a mission there. That's good. We want to maintain ambiguity in Tunisia. Yeah, colonial revolt then in Spain is building railroads. They're catching up. They are catching up. Not much in the way of factories though. Now, the Americans, I think, have actually occupied most of Cuba already. Spain controls Santo Domingo. And Puerto Rico still. But yeah, the Americans are controlling Cuba. They're kind of moving in. They don't control Havana yet, though. That's interesting. And it's, what, late April? No Germany as of yet. I reckon if it happens, it'll happen in the next 12 to 24 months. If it doesn't happen by 73, I think that's it. You know, we'll be stuck with kind of Metternich's map of Northern Europe, which, you know, on the one hand, it's a shame because we don't have the kind of superpower that forms in Europe that ends up challenging the British, which would benefit us. But on the plus side, German colonies are much less likely to be pursued by Germany effectively. So I'm thinking kind of East Africa. This is already an area. You know, we already have Zanzibar. So we could begin to kind of muscle in on, I guess, what became Tanganyika, or this northern area here is Kenya, and that is, yeah, Mombasa and this sort of thing. I think Tanganyika, or Tanzania, is sort of down here. I might be wrong, but I think that's, yeah, Tanzania is kind of here, and this is Kenya. If we, I mean, you know, we could move into Kenya as well, but that would piss the British off even more. Access to some good stuff there, though. I mean, Tanga, which is presumably going to contain its tropical fruits, that is something that we want. Let's have a look at definitions and status. Okay, so this area is Kenya, and this area is rubber in there. That's interesting. Yeah, Tanganyika, East Africa. Sugar. We've already got a trading station and a mission there. It's Dar es Salaam. We basically need to muscle control. Tropical fruits. Tanganyika might be on the cards. It is an intriguing area. I mean, there's some good sort of access to commodities. We also don't know what's in this kind of terra incognita, and rubber as well. I mean, obviously that doesn't feature that much yet in construction, but you know, late game automobiles, aircraft could be really interesting. The other areas that the Prussians moved in then is Namibia, which is just fish at the moment. There's nothing there really by the looks of it. But we don't know what's in the interior of Namibia. And then there is Cameroon, which is kind of here, I think. I might be wrong, but I think Cameroon is kind of here. Okay, this is Nigeria, so this is Cameroon. Yeah, Cameroon is here. There's nothing there at the moment. Timber? It's controlled by... Is it controlled by actually rebels, or is that just a really weird flag? Neutral relationship with Ottoman Empire, yeah. So this area is controlled by... So, you know what? There's nothing there. It's not like anyone else has made a play. Okay, we might not pursue this much further, but we have spare merchants. Let's get some merchants and a mission. Not much else we can do, really. Merchants and missions. We can't really play those in Tanganyika, because Tanganyika... We could do it down here, which we already have, but down here is controlled by a kind of tribal, you know, like a tribal society that's... It's disorganized enough for us to establish ourselves, so we get a little trickle of sugar, plus we get some private capital from the trade post. It's a different game. Further north, Kenya, and you can see the Red Cross. This is controlled by just out-and-out brigands. But yeah, this is a UK-influenced area, so the British have got 35% colonial penetration. Prussia's 29%, Oman, interesting, 15%. And then Tanga, this is the ruler line colonial border then between Kenya and Tanzania. Tropical fruits, we are so yeah, nothing here. But this is controlled by Oman. What have we got? What kind of muscle have we got in the area? We've got a Marine Brigade. And we've got colonials, Zanzibari colonials. What commodity was there again? Tropical fruits. This is a little bit risky because obviously there's a chance the brigands are just going to march through the area. But let's send some merchants and a mission here also. And let's land a small security force. 2nd Marine Brigade. 9 days. We'll set to offensive and a conservative attack. We don't know what's there in the last analysis. So if Prussia doesn't form, you know, there is the kind of, you know, the question then of what happens to, or, you know, if Germany doesn't form, what happens to kind of Germany's colonies? The other areas of the Pacific, I think. I can't remember what German colonies are. I think it might be Papua New Guinea in a terra incognita and a smattering of yeah, it's these Spanish islands. So I think the Carolinas, they don't go to war with Spain, but I think it's a part of the 1898 deal perhaps, or something, or maybe these areas are controlled by Spain. I mean, what are they? Yeah, they're Spanish colonies. I don't know if they were colonies in real life or whether kind of, you know, I mean, in 1850 they probably start off as influenced, and Spain has just made them colonies, or whether they were just influenced areas and the Germans began to make landings. In any case, I mean, you know, why with the Ottoman Empire, you know, there's nothing prohibiting us from having a sort of a position in the kind of Pacific Rim. I mean, Sumatra is something that we've already been considering anyway. We've played a few cards in sort of Indochina. What's to say that we don't? Even if it's an island, I mean, these aren't, you know, this is British, is it? British influenced territory. This is the Gilbert Islands. I think the Gilbert Islands is, no, I thought it was where Guadalcanal was. I think this island is Guadalcanal, but I might be wrong. Okay, anyway. Stop being distracted. Yeah, so, I mean, there's things to think about. If Germany doesn't form, yeah, you know, we could kind of expand our colonial position a little bit. Long term, who knows? Okay. That's it. I saw the reports read. I think. Just going to scroll through, make sure there's nothing else. Trade posts. Sending stuff back. We're kind of already saying no to the Egyptians. Assets balance once more real quick. That's all good. Got to put you on pause. Past turn. It's late April. See you on the other side in... Actually, really quickly. Black Sea trade. One thing, if you ever see units lined up, the unit on the left-hand side typically always has the higher combat value. So it goes from left to right. So if you have like a whole load of army corps, the guard corps will be the one most to the left. This can vary based on casualties it's taken, it's demoralized or whatever. But with fresh units, one interesting thing, of course, is these steamers have a slightly lower combat value. I guess maybe we're moving away from the period of kind of armed merchantmen. Probably because in the you know, as we enter much more into the industrial age, piracy and most of the sea routes is less of an issue. So maybe it's the fact that these older age of sail merchantmen typically are armed, I guess. It doesn't suggest they are, however. It doesn't suggest they're carrying any guns. Ships. Yeah, I mean, there's no offensive or defensive combat factor for steamers. So steamers just don't have guns, basically. They just require the flint of edge of the navy. So we'll send this. I mean, these age of sail merchants are bringing them back to Istanbul first of all, Constantinople, to 5 days, and we'll break them up. We will break them up. But I'm just sending them back there just in case. Well, I don't know. Yeah, the organisation is slightly lower as well. I guess because the age of sail, maybe the crews. I mean, I suppose the crews increasingly in these newer ships are kind of machine operators. You know, that's interesting. And we're gonna actually slightly increase the number of merchantmen that we have in the Mediterranean to 3. 3 companies of ships. And the other steamers we are going to send, I think, to the Indian Ocean. "14 days. We'll begin building some more now also. Be a little bit careful because, you know, we already know that this is kind of it's pissing the British off a little bit. So what have we got? Oh, hang on. We've now got pure commerce steamer. So we've just built a load of commerce steamers. How do these vary? You know, we've got even bigger. Okay. Merchant ship level 1. This unit has a merchant efficiency of 40. So these are steamers without even auxiliary. $30. Okay. Black Sea trade. Well, we can mix and match them a little bit, but let's go with the most modern variety. The thing I'm worried about is coal consumption. Yeah, and you can see straight away between the two that these steamers are larger. So 250 men. Well, the number of men doesn't necessarily mean very much because, of course, with even with auxiliary sails, you'll need more crew. Movement ocean. Okay, it's just here. It's large and small. So these are small merchantmen. Right. Well, let's instead of building loads at once, because we don't want to sort of alarm, you know, sort of alarm anyone with by massive increases in our kind of commercial position. We're going to start building a trickle of the large merchant ships then. Large steamers. This requires manufactured goods. Steel, coal. These smaller ones require steel, coal, manufactured goods, conscripts. Okay. And officers. Oh, no, wait a minute, I'm going mad. I was looking at the wrong thing. Steel, coal, manufactured goods. Steel, coal, manufactured goods, just less, okay. Right, good. So what we'll do then is we'll supplant local trade with the really big merchantmen, the big steamers that don't even have auxiliary sails, so the large, and then the smaller ones will sort of push out to places like kind of Latin America, and so the large steamers we'll use for the Black Sea, the Med, and the Indian Ocean, and yeah, the smaller ones will push out. Right, good. Got to put you on pause. Past turn. It's late April. See you on the other side in early May. Okay, welcome back. It is early May. We passed turn. Relatively uneventful round. Well, before we look at the combat reports, there's a couple of historical events. Then we've got the Treaty of Washington. Let's have a gander at this. I think it's between the UK and the Americans. A treaty concludes between Britain and the United States, setting various differences between the two governments, but chiefly in regard to the Alabama claims. Eventually, I think this is the ship. I'm not sure. Eventually, the US was awarded 15.5 million US dollars, and the British apologized. This is rise for the destruction caused by the British-built Confederate cruiser in the Civil War. Okay, so I'm guessing the British built a ship for the Confederacy called the Alabama. Although not admitting guilt, provision was also made to the northeastern fisheries by the appointment of a mixed commission. Right, okay. So I guess it's sort of formalizing kind of deals between the Americans and the British. I suppose as the Americans kind of, really, the 1870s really begin their ascendancy, they can kind of assert themselves a little bit more and, impose kind of demands, especially when the Civil War's over. The Civil War was a bit of a non-event in our parallel universe. The Confederacy was rolled up hard and fast, but they were kind of contained in New Orleans for some years, for about I think there was a siege of New Orleans that went on for, well, it seemed like some years, and in reality it's probably 6 months to a year. And that was it, sort of thing. So there was no kind of... I don't think it was as costly in this game as it was in real life. The Confederacy didn't do very well. I wonder why that is. I'd be interested to know. I mean, there's not much industry in the South. Of course, there wasn't anyway. But American railroads, have they actually crossed the entire United States yet? Well, they're just the... Yeah, they have, yeah. Yeah, they have a transcontinental rail line going all the way to San Francisco. How about that? So the winning of the West is happening. Anyway, Treaty of Washington. Beyond that, we've got sort of raiders in South Africa, natives causing the Dutch trouble in Borneo, good. Arawak pirates spotted in the South China Sea. Germany has decreed a partial mobilization. I wonder why that is. Let's have a look at their goings on. Still called Prussia here. Bismarck. Well, he's called Kaiser. I think they were Königs before, because Kaiser is Caesar, meaning like emperor. I might be wrong, but I'm not sure if the Prussian monarch was called Kaiser before the unification of Germany. He may have been. But I think he was a König, and then was kind of... Kaiser is like emperor, you know, became Kaiser when the German Empire was formed. Still the Prussian flag, still Prussia here. Bismarck administered president. Why did I come here? To look at their foreign relations. I think it's just Sweden. Sweden, Holland, Nicaragua, Mexico, all places. Bosnia, which doesn't exist. That's strange because I'm running actually I think one of the only mods that exists. It might be that it's not installed correctly then. Which means that powers don't declare war on powers that don't exist, and yet that seems to have happened. I wonder why that is. It's like a kind of like a fix, you know. I think it adds some other things as well, some balancing things, and adds some Austrian units. It might be that it's not installed correctly. I'll have to check that. Because yeah, that shouldn't happen. It's a kind of, I mean, it doesn't really do anything. Obviously, Bosnia doesn't exist. I don't think it even affects your relations with other powers. It's just a strange thing that happens, where the AI will declare war on powers that don't exist. They're listed, obviously, within the game directory as existing, because there's the potential for them to exist. But anyway, that's that. Okay, so engagement at Larissa, or sort of Thessalia. We've got some line infantry and a cavalry division there. Still inconclusive. We only inflict 2,000 casualties. We take 600. What's weirder is they have 7,000 men there, which suggests that they're replacing losses. Because we've already inflicted casualties in that force. So, okay. Naval patrols have failed to engage the enemy, the Nile Delta. That's interesting. So that means that our blockade is not really working. Or it is, but it's working imperfectly, I guess. But anyway, it looks like some Egyptian runners have managed to get out of Dimyat. Now the Egyptians, there's an engagement at Cairo. This looks like a scouting force that's pushed forward. Light cavalry regiment, completely destroyed. Good. But after that, surprisingly, there's a fairly sizable engagement. I mean, they're never going to win with only 22,000 men, but they do make another committed push into Cairo. They lose half of their force, 11,000 casualties. We take less than 4,000 casualties there. So yeah, good to see. And that's it. Now, in terms of movement reports, you'll note that Safed Pasha was meant to cross over into Dumyat. Obviously, he has to cross the Nile, and the Nile is wide here. It's not just any kind of, not just a normal river. It's very, very wide. Yeah, the progress of Safed Pasha's corps has been halted towards Dumyat, the crossing being under enemy guns. My thinking is we need engineers. To that end, I think we're going to send Bayezid Pasha with his force north. He's activated. There is actually, surprisingly, torrential rain in northern Egypt at the moment, which is a shame. How's it going to affect his progress? 12 days. He's going to be slowed down anyway because of the Nile, but with pontooners, with engineers, that should facilitate his crossing. We'll move Safed Pasha. We'll see if we can move him across again as well. It's 12 days. Ghazala is now 93% controlled. Let's move Ahmed Ayoub into Alex, 9 days, and then the cavalry brigade in Siwa has secured 100% control over Siwa. We'll move that north to Ghazala to consolidate control in Ghazala, and then maybe we can scout south into Katara. I'm not sure if we can get military units into Katara. We might. It's a cavalry brigade. We might be able to, but to significant to wrestle control over Qatar. For the most part, once we take Dimyat, we're going to hold this position. We're going to control the kind of lower Nile Delta, with the Nile Delta, and this is the political heartland of Egypt, really. This is where, you know, I mean, we might be able to push a little bit further south, but there might be surplus to requirements. There may be, you know, I'm not sure what's the point, really. We can really much hold this position, sit on Cairo, and let the war score sort of clock up. Yeah, that's the move we're going to make. We're going to hold position in Suez. Abu Pasha's not activated, so we'll hold a defensive position in Cairo district with his command. Okay, still a lot of artillery regiments being upgraded. Horse artillery battalion, field artillery battalion. Good stuff. With good constructions going ahead in Berbera. Julius, the possibility is Julius Verdi du Vanois. I quickly looked at this. Predictably, it's not visible now. Oh, here it is. 1870. I think it's a military theoretical development. Julius von Verdi de Vanois, possibly mispronounced, was a German. Okay. 1832 to 1910 was a German general staff officer and military writer. He stressed the importance of the leader of a brigade, division, or larger unit in developing and implementing correct ideas and plans. And that leads, it doesn't give us anything, but it leads on to Ardon du Pic. That's an 1880. I wonder if it's related. In Hearts of Iron, one of the French generals, he might be a very old general available, I'm sure, is one Ardon du Pic. Or maybe it's the son of this guy, but anyway, he's, I'm assuming it's French. Ardon du Pic will be another French theoretician. Triggers new scripted events for your nation. Okay. Good stuff. Now, the economy, slowing down a little bit. Coal imports are good, stockpile of coal is good. We have kind of like choked off manufactured goods exports, but not enough for it to account for the sort of the magnitude of the drop-off. I can't really see clearly where it is. I mean, even if you read all your reports, as I do, you're never going to be able to kind of memorize, you know. I mean, I looked through what we had. It looked like it's not like we had all of a sudden had loads of something which was, you know, suggested that we weren't shifting a particular commodity. Assets balance. Well, inflation's still at 1%. And inflation should theoretically result in a higher figure anyway, I thought. I don't know, maybe not. 379 goods sold on the national market. National market sales are averaging out fairly normally. They've dropped from about 1,700 to 14, just under 1,500. It's a fairly big drop-off. Might just be an aberration. We'll keep an eye on it. Also, imports have dropped off slightly. But it's not the numbers of merchandises. I wonder why that is. Price fluctuation. I wonder whether these new merchants are having an impact. I wouldn't have thought so. We've got small steamers now anyway. I mean, what is the merchant? Yeah, it's at 30 for these steamers. For the old kind of age of sail merchants, it's 20, and for the new big steamers that we're building, it's 40. Yeah. I don't know why it is. We'll keep an eye on it. But yeah, obviously, you know, it's not a good sign if sort of it might be that, yeah, a lot of houses have imported. You know, we've just maybe reached a bit of a sort of ceiling in the market. I don't know. See, what would be really good at some point is getting railroads linked up. We've got to keep in mind that like building railroads for the sake of it, and merchant and steamers for the sake of it, does, you know, it costs more because if we just build a railroad, you know, all the way across kind of to Tripoli, okay, in one sense this would be like our kind of, you know, our Trans-Siberian Railway. It'd be a real feat of engineering to have railroads linking Tripoli all the way up to kind of Constantinople across Egypt once we control northern Egypt long term. But also, I mean, until we can massively increase our yield of coal, I just kind of think it's going to cost us more than it gives us. That said, it allows us to project force in Tripoli under conditions where we do not have a maritime edge, or where the maritime interdiction is going to be a real problem, which in a war against France or Britain may well be the case. So, you know, there is a military kind of case for it. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the economy anyway. We've rejected the Egyptian demands. Let's just see. Let's see kind of what we could actually. We don't have any diplomats, but we could at least kind of get an idea what the war score is. And war score's 28, not very much then. So we've got reparations, claimed regions, Suez, Gazala, Siwa. I'm thinking. I mean, these. You know, this is Salkim is basically Port Sudan. So claim they don't have any colonies, which is interesting. I suppose that Sudan is just a kind of, you know, yeah, it's just a controlled region. It's not an Egyptian colony. We'll hold our position. We'll hold it as long as we have to. They might even at some point offer us something that we live, but I think Suez is a deal breaker. You know, Suez is an important town, and that gives us a claim on Cairo, Dumyat. And Gazala, Suez and Gazala, because Gazala would then give us a claim on Alexandria, which in say 75 or 76, we could then make a play for these regions. Yeah, long term, you know, yeah, we could actually. I'm not sure if we get Cairo. We might be able to. But I mean, to tell you the truth, Suez, Dumyat, Alex, and Qattara. That's the northern coast of Egypt. That's a rail line if we want it. You know, I mean, years from now, obviously. I mean, the coal question is kind of answered by us securing a deal with Romania. That's the only thing. Because this is 3 unexploited coal sites. We've got another coal pit going in. They're not very productive. I mean, they will be more productive once this rail line's finished. But I mean, if we had, imagine 3 coal sites that produce, I don't know, something similar to, for example, Strumel. 16, 3 times 16 is something, 40 something. 43? I don't know. It's good. It's definitely good. I mean, let's have a look at our assets balance. We haven't built anything this turn, so we're importing 50. And that gives us surplus 2 per turn. Railroad plus an additional coal site here completed, you know, might give us another 16. So 16 plus 43. That would make us self-sufficient again. That would make us self-sufficient. That or another qualitative technological change. Now, there's a variation, of course, between each site, how much each site produces, and if we're not very well liked here by the local population, that will depress our output a little bit. Anyway, there aren't any technologies that I can see in the pipeline anyway that are available yet. There's nothing really obvious. These are the industrials: structural steel, factory illumination, children, which I guess is going to be cattle, Northrop loom, which is going to be textiles, electrification. Electrification might be something. I mean, I'm just thinking that lighting mines up, artificial 300 modifier, I can't really see, adds 1 new structure to the force pool. I wonder what that would be. Force pool being, I mean, it might be an electric gear shop. 1870 leads to precision milling machines. electric trams, underground rail systems, alternating current motors, aviation industry, automobile industry. Precision micrometer or something. The use of linear scales or telescopes is essential. But their adaptation to precision measurement by machinists came with the introduction of an extensive, reliable micrometer caliper by the Brown and Sharp Company, 1867. Mechanical parts, okay, so it's a machine kind of engineering. Modern blast furnaces is going to be steel production, which will increase demand for coal. New drilling, I can just see from there, this is going to be petroleum. See, a lot of the things that I can see here increase demand for coal, if we implement them, if we choose to implement them. So if we suddenly upgrade our steel sort of smelts, yeah, I mean, they're going to be thirsty for coal. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff down the road that just increases, plus the additional railroads, plus these steamers that we're building, all increases demand for coal. And it's fine. I mean, it's not like there's a shortage of coal in the world at the moment, but the more coal that we import to support our industry, the less efficient our industry becomes, the less profitable it becomes, because we have to kind of offset the cost of coal. You know, it's why countries like Italy, you know, like always had really inefficient countries that didn't have good domestic access to coal, had inefficient and relatively small manufacturing base during this period. And there's nowhere close by unless we make some kind of really serious play. This is the thing, is all of the Austrian coal is in the northern part of the country. It's in like Czechoslovakia sort of area, southern Poland. It's not like there's any big coal sites in Hungary or Transylvania or anything. Russian coal sites are sort of interesting a little bit. I mean, around Rostov-on-Don, the kind of Don Bend, southern Ukraine, Lugansk, Kharkov. But this is out of reach for us, you know. I mean, we're never going to get it. Never going to be in a position to hold these regions. I noticed the Russians are importing tea from us, which is interesting, because they have more sort of tea plantations. They have better access to tea than we do. It's just that they're really inefficient, undeveloped. Okay. We'll keep an eye on the economy. I'm going to put you on pause and pass turn, and then we'll leave it there. It's early May, so we'll leave hopefully with having secured Dumyat, and with that, the kind of delta. It's not the first time. I think we occupied Cairo once before in the last 20 years. I'm sure it was in the late 50s, early 60s. So we've been here before. I think I'm struggling to. I can't think what it is that we got out of the Egyptians. I know the Egyptians declared war on us, didn't they? Maybe it was Salum. I can't remember what it is we got from the Egyptians, or we just squeezed them for kind of reparations. This is where Egypt will become a problem, is when we're kind of engaged in the north against Austria or Russia or both. You know, their army is large enough to become a real irritant. Controlling Suez, I mean, we have it a little bit with Sinai, but with Suez we can build a really good fort there. This kind of like creates a nice bottleneck that we can hold the Egyptians from, you know, sending cavalry brigades, raiding forces into kind of into the Middle East, into the Levant and Mesopotamia, and also ultimately want to set up a block so they don't kind of, you know, like, if they do become a problem. I mean, if we control the Delta, we could control all the urban areas that we can fortify. This gives us a really nice bulwark against the Egyptians. If we can push them to the south of the country, ultimately, you know, maybe south of Aswan or something like that, then if the British get involved, it doesn't really matter too much. We can really build these cities up into kind of redoubts. And that also applies for if the British end up having a presence in Egypt. So if the British presence is limited to, for example, Sudan and southern Egypt, having a kind of cluster of forts around the kind of delta would be good, really good. We could even actually maintain a permanent command in Egypt. a permanent, full-sized army of sort of 70, 80, 90,000 men positioned in Cairo. Anyway, food for thought. Before I do pass turn, I'm going to really quickly begin breaking up. It's annoying when that happens. Yeah, begin breaking up these ships, I suppose. There we go. And I also really want to quickly check Greece. So these Greek rebels, the last of them are in Janina. We've got military police there in 3 days. I don't really want them to get there just yet, actually, because we don't want our military police to be slaughtered as they try to get to Epirus. So let's... we've got Mehmedizet activated. Can we move him? Yes, we can. What's his command? 12 and 12, so we can't... It's not like we can fold that cavalry division into his command. It's a shame. We'll move the cavalry division with him. 13 days. Isn't that extraordinary? It takes the cavalry division more time, I guess, because there's a commander, so this corps is slightly better organised. And that should hopefully be the end. The end of the Egyptian revolt of the early 1870s. That's the hope. Okay, yeah, that's done. Okay, yeah, I'll put you on pause, pass turn, and we'll see you on the other side in it's early May, so late May. Okay, welcome back then. It's late May, and let's have a kind of quick look at what's happened in the last fortnight. First of all, we just got sort of standard reports. Nothing really there that's relevant to us. Rubber plantations in what looks like Congo have been discovered. Interesting. Now, combat reports is where things get interesting. So our move into Dumyat came off. We destroyed the garrison there. Now there's 1,500 men because that includes the Egyptian fleet, or at least a part or the remainder of the Egyptian fleet. We destroyed a militia brigade by the looks of it, although there are 4 elements there, so I'm not sure what happened to the rest. But in addition to that, the Egyptians once again make another push for Cairo. We destroyed almost their entire force. In fact, their entire force, because we captured the remainder of the guns. So they're making repeated pushes north to try and take Cairo from the south, and they've got fairly substantial forces here. Bear in mind that they're kind of their number is suppressed slightly because they're technologically and not quite as advanced as we are, and they're not quite as organised as we are. They've probably got a good, 60,000 men. I think they're bringing forces up from the interior, and by the looks of it, a lot of mixed units, lots of kind of brigades, the odd division here or there. But yeah, and they're just making repeated plays for Cairo. They're not getting anywhere. This battle of Cairo was successful, and we get a national morale point for it because it was a fairly hefty defeat we inflicted in the field, and we capture a couple of Egyptian artillery regiments. We'll put those to good use, no doubt. We'll leave them for the time being inside Cairo, just to modernise them, and they require replacement parts and crews and that sort of thing. But yeah, we'll make the most of that. Now this is interesting. We do take Dumyat, so I think the remainder of that Egyptian force surrenders. In the Nile Delta, we actually have probably the last one in this campaign, 1871, a traditional Age of Sail kind of battle. We haven't seen many naval battles. The great scheme of things, this is fairly large. I mean, these Egyptian, it's one squadron of battleships, of triple-decker, sort of first-rate Egyptian ships. Now, they're outnumbered heavily, of course. We've got 2 squadrons of battleships, plus they're supported by a host of screw corvettes, regular corvettes, and screw and regular frigates, plus we have our transport fleet. The transport fleet is set to evade combat, but it folds in, I guess, because the transport fleet might have some combat value. They're all sent to the bottom, of course. There was no chance the Egyptians are fleeing Dumyat as it's falling, so it's their attempt to run the blockade in big Age of Sail. I mean, these battleships are not going to run a blockade. You might have a small, sort of, like a small group of kind of frigates and corvettes, especially if their leader has blockade runner. Someone like, these are ships that might have been able to flee. In fact, we had reports that some Egyptian ships did escape, so there may have been frigates or corvettes led by an officer that had a kind of blockade runner characteristic. But yeah, the sent to the bottom. The Egyptians do land some critical hits. They inflict 600 casualties, but it's like our squadron has the wind gauge, the weather gauge as well. Yeah, easy money. And the last, probably I reckon the last, sort of traditional Age of Sail kind of action. Let's have a look at what ships were damaged. None of the big battleships were. I mean, these are all going to be broken up in the next 5 years, probably anyway. Our legacy fleet. There we go. So it's corvettes or frigates. Corvettes, yeah. So a couple of corvettes hit. These do represent one ship per element. Yeah, so 2 of them are badly damaged. Good stuff. Bet with the forces we have there, they were never gonna win that. But yeah, good to see. Let's make sure that none of our transports were damaged. I'm guessing the 600 casualties then were focused. I suppose some ships might have taken some hits where the ships weren't damaged, but crew were killed. Yeah, good stuff. That's it. The only there's an additional action in Janina. We still haven't managed to completely destroy all the Egyptian forces. So the Greek forces in Janina. We destroy those forces. It looks like Greek forces. Some Greek forces have fallen back to Athens and are besieging Athens. This is really just remnants. This is like, at this point, these are just a few hundred, kind of few hundred kind of mountain men, really. I mean, we're going to send, we'll send Mephibosheth's corps back, and we'll get the military police into Janina now. To Epirus, they're 1 day away. We'll set them to enter the structure, and that should begin to kind of suppress. Let's have a look at revolt risk. Yeah, we also need to look at Larissa. So we've got another provost unit which is just finished. We'll begin the construction of an additional one because we need to replace one from the army in Bosnia. Gendarmerie, there we go. So the one that's just been completed will be sent to Larissa. We've got one going down to Epirus, and then the one that we've just started construction, that'll be earmarked for the army in Bosnia. And that's all the actions. The only thing that does happen that's mildly irritating is the Egyptians send a scouting force north as we cross the Nile to secure Dumiat, and they re-secure Giza. It's a very small force. There'll be no problem in rushing that force back. For the Egyptian campaign, that's pretty much the end of operations. So what we'll do is we'll re-secure a line here. We'll re-secure Giza. We're not going to develop operations against Egypt beyond this. The reason being is that it'll be surplus to requirements. The further south we go, we'll have to build depots. It'll get messier. We'll have to hold more ground, which might be subject to, for example, revolts, insurgencies, and things like this. What we're looking for is a peace deal. Now, the Egyptians do offer us a peace deal. They are offering us chicken feed. I mean, Siwa, Canberra, Salcombe, and Gazala. Now, Gazala is something that we want, of course, and Siwa. So we do want Siwa and Gazala. The other 2 territories in Sudan, I'll take it or leave it, to tell you the truth. I'm more interested in Suez. Suez gives us a card claim on the Delta and allows us a second run at Egypt a few years from now, where we will look to secure, more substantial territory, especially Alexandria. So that's it. Operations from now is going to involve resecuring Giza. It'd be inconceivable that could be a problem. The main Egyptian force is just south of Suaf, south of Cairo. But that force is not going to be strong enough to take Cairo, and won't be strong enough to counter Bayezid Pasha when he moves back into Giza. Now, Bayezid Pasha is light, 1 army corps, I think. Yeah, so 1 corps is here. That's for the 5th army. So we can now fold the Imperial Guard. Yeah, back into Bayezid Pasha's force. and we're going to move that south. That's a 5-day march to resecure Giza. And that is the end of the Egyptian campaign. We're going to send the main fleet back now to Constantinople. The blockade was successful. We sunk some Egyptian ships. We were there if we had to besiege Alexandria, we were there to ensure that, you know, we could bring our naval guns to bear against the coastal fort if we had to. We'll put the transport fleet to Alexandria for now. 1 day away. Hold a position in Gazala. And that's it. That's the end of the war, essentially. That's the end of our offensive operations. We're not going to get any more war score, I don't think, by pressing much further south. If war score clocks up really slowly, we might push as far south as kind of, we've got Luxor and then Aswan. Probably not that. Maybe as far south as Luxor. But again, once we get to here, we've got supply issues really. I mean, you know, the Nile helps us supply, but supplying 2 armies or even 1 army, you know, it just gets a little bit messy, I think. So we're not going to do it. We'll just hold Cairo for the time being. Let the war score clock up. Press a claim for Gazala and Suez at the very least. Ideally Syria as well. That's it. I'll leave this video here, I think. The only other thing is the economy. Exports have not rebounded. They've remained a little bit lower than expected, and domestic market sales have now dropped off. Is this a sign that the economy is cooling? Is this a sign of an emerging global economic crisis? I don't know, but we'll keep an eye on these statistics. There are fluctuations. 2 weeks is not a long period of time in terms of the sort of annual kind of economic cycle. So there's going to be little fluctuations. We have depressed exports of manufactured goods, but that shouldn't affect domestic market sales. So I don't know why that is. But then some domestic market sales maybe a peg to exports somehow. Maybe wealth generated by exports stimulates a bit of demand at home. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it, see what's going on. There's nothing obvious. It's not like I click on the trade balance and there's all of a sudden a massive stockpile of commodities where we haven't shifted something. So, don't know. We haven't lost any territory. In fact, we've gained territory. So we should be selling more domestic commodities. We should be selling goods, for example, in Cairo and Alexandria. So and these are big cities. And if there's money there, you know, there'll be wealthy people there that want to buy manufactured goods and tobacco and coffee and opium and all those kinds of things. But we're not shifting this stuff. Don't know why. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And I mentioned, yeah, Egypt sent us an offer. That's pretty much it. Nothing else to report, I think, this turn. We captured 2 artillery regiments. I mentioned that. And the Egyptians recaptured Giza. I think we'll switch back to quarterly reports. So the next report, it's late May, will be maybe the end of the summer, something like that. Or autumn time. Unless something happens in between. If there is a development, a big geopolitical development like the unification of Germany, or there's a reversal or some kind of sudden change in Egypt, or a peace proposal that we accept, I'll do a video on that basis. But from now on, we'll be back to kind of quarterly reports, which will probably be a little bit shorter. The videos won't last like an hour at a time. I guess they'll be sort of half hour to 45 minutes, something like that. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.